What's up everyone, it's Endymion, and lately I've been covering some insane topics, so I felt like it's time for a little palate cleanse. So today I want to speak about The Witcher. There's been some really weird developments surrounding the franchise, and we may now know how Netflix plans to replace Henry Cavill as Geralt. And it is not what I expected, nor is it really what I think any of us want either. Let me explain. According to Redanian intelligence, there's been some dialogue coming from the show's producers, and it's interesting to say the least. One of the show's producers, Tomek Baginski, said, and I quote, "We probably don't have time to go into philosophically the core ideas behind the saga and define the Witcher world. But one of the big topics in the Witcher world is that every story can be told from many points of view. And sometimes those points of views and those versions of the stories are very different from what we thought was truth." End quote. This basically solidifies that Netflix is not only going to completely abandon the source material going forward, but they hint that Liam Hemsworth won't just be replacing Henry Cavill, but he will be an alternate version of Geralt, like a different universe that's brought into the Netflix universe. Just to refresh those who don't know, The Witcher's story takes place on the continent. And the reason why vampires, ghouls, and all the other monsters exist is because of the cosmic event known as the Conjunction of the Spheres. Basically, all the dimensions line up and they spill various creatures from other dimensions onto the continent, and that's why The Witcher's world is one giant hellscape. So it looks like Netflix is taking this concept of the conjunction, but they're twisting it to allow them to say there's not only multiple dimensions, but there's multiverses of existence, each with their own Geralt. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of multiverse stories, and I think it's a lazy way to broaden the scope of a story's world by just saying, look, there's infinite worlds where everything is different. Maybe it's just cause Marvel has been overdoing it lately to diminishing effects, but then this begs the question, why would Liam's Geralt replace Cavill's? Could it be that Henry Cavill's Geralt ends up dying and during some conjunction-like multiverse event he gets replaced by Liam and that's it? It looks to be that's the way they're going about this, which would mean the new Geralt is quite literally a new person. I don't personally like that myself because it means all the relationships Cavill's Geralt has built are now technically done, and all the rich lore and character building is now thrown away. So this new Geralt would not really be friends with this universe's Vesemir? I don't know, man, it sounds weird. But this is at least Netflix's supposed way to remove Cavill's Geralt definitively and have him maybe die or go missing or be replaced by Liam Hemsworth's version. The only interesting angle they could take with this, I guess, is if this Geralt that Liam plays is from a world where everything went wrong. Like, Yennefer is dead in his world, Vesemir got his head cracked open like a watermelon, maybe even Ciri got snatched by the Wild Hunt in his universe. And they could write some sort of what-if fanfiction story where Liam's Geralt is looking to redeem himself after failing everyone around him. I'm probably giving Netflix too much credit to think they'd even write a story like that. It's likely just going to be some sort of nonsense and that's it, and maybe Liam's Geralt is also gay because ESG scores, I guess. Unfortunately, this likely means Netflix will be using their other get-out-of-jail-free card in the form of Shenchai. You're probably like, who? Well, if you suffered through Blood Origin, Netflix created this Witcher-like version of a Watcher from the Marvel Comics, basically. Shenchai is a time and space traveling storyteller that collects stories. She's basically, the way I understand it, to be Netflix's writing staff all combined into one character. It's their bullshit excuse they can pull at any point and say, well, the story is different now, cause multiverses and this time traveler collects stories. Which just proves how willing Netflix is when it comes to distorting The Witcher's source material for their own politics. Basically, this Shenchai character, which I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong, but who cares, could just say to the characters, oh, actually, that's not how Geralt looks like. He actually looks like this, and boom, it's now lore accurate. I hate it here, I really do. That same producer, Tomek Baginski, had more to say, so I quote, "Lauren Hisrich and her team, and there are a few really good writers returning to the writer's room for season 4, I think they cobbled together a really nice opening which is really true to the books. This is a very little thing that I will tease. People who know the books really deeply also know that this is not a typical fantasy book. It's not just one world, it's not just one story happening in those books, in those stories. It's a huge world which is very complex. I will stop here." End quote. So this all but confirms that yes, Liam Hemsworth's Geralt will be his own Geralt, completely removed from all the baggage of Cavill's. Baginski was also asked about the fan boycott of the show, which he had some interesting things to say, so good lord, I'm quoting this guy a third time, alright, and I quote, "I think wait and see. It's the only strategy I can take at the moment because we don't know what will happen in the future. We don't know how it will work out. I also remember what were the first reaction for Henry's years ago in 2018. At that time, a lot of people couldn't imagine this character being played by Henry Cavill because, oh, he's too muscular. There was a ton of different opinions all over the internet. And then we released first materials, and then we released first trailers, and finally it was like, oh, that's interesting. That actually is working. That's actually going quite well." End quote. Okay, I'll give Baginski that at least fans were originally a little wary of Cavill, but that's nothing new since people are always skeptical of any casting in the early stages. Just look at Heath Ledger as Joker, or when Tom Holland got cast as Spider-Man. People were rightfully wary, but once they saw it, they understood it. But this killing or replacing Cavill's Geralt with a multiverse version is just not very interesting to me. My main reason being, once multiverses are introduced, concepts like death are just kind of pointless. Cause as soon as somebody dies, they can just pull the same person from another universe and it's like nothing happened. It just kind of erases the concept of finality and it lessens the stakes in my opinion. But this does basically confirm that Liam's Geralt is another Geralt from another universe, so let me know what you think about that. Next, I want to speak about how the people behind Netflix's Witcher basically just outed themselves and confirmed they always intended the show to be woke. From bounding into comics with their article titled, "The Witcher casting director admits to using her job to affect change in viewers and manipulate their unconscious bias." The casting director of Witcher is Sophie Holland, who's worked on other Netflix projects like Wednesday as well as Shadow and Bone. Anyway, she openly admits how she used her position as casting director to push her political worldview into Witcher from its inception. This is going to be a long quote, so strap yourselves in anyway, and I quote, "I think the first time I felt like a casting director was when I worked on something called The Kill Team by Dan Krauss, which was the story of American soldiers over in Afghanistan. It was the first time I understood that casting wasn't just about finding beautiful people who could do the American accent convincingly, but that casting could have a real profound impact on the people watching it. You can affect change in whatever tiny way because you are in people's homes and they're watching this world. And that sort of solidified when I had a child. She's 5 now and I thought how hard it is to be a girl. I remember thinking I have to help her because she's going to come under attack just like I did just because she's a girl. Maybe she'll be lucky and get to 9 before somebody calls her a bitch. And it made me so sad that she was going to experience that and I couldn't protect her from that. But what I could do is change the way people see women through casting. I can make them powerful and empowering and then the floodgates will open to them. I do apply this theory to everything and it makes me push boundaries a little harder because I think representation is important, not just for women, but all minority groups. Like, people have different physical abilities and I think it's important they're seen in strong and fierce roles. Realizing this was a real moment of falling in love with my craft in a way that feels very specific to me. I am always the first to champion diversity in all of its glory. One that springs to mind was the character of Yennefer on The Witcher. Lauren Hissrich is the showrunner and we work so well together and she's so open to conversations. In the book, she's described as the most beautiful woman in the world. This was a few years ago and I'd like to think things have changed. But when you think about people's unconscious bias, especially in the fantasy world, it felt like these worlds were predominantly white. And I remember saying, I feel like we need to challenge what people think of as the standard of beauty, and having a woman of color in this role does incredibly powerful things to the people watching." End quote. I love how Miss Holland says she believes the status quo of what's considered beautiful has changed in society. So she's saying she believes white women are apparently not what we should be idealizing anymore, but women of color instead. I also find it interesting how Holland says there's an unconscious bias in fantasy settings that the worlds feel predominantly white. This is a nothing argument against something like The Witcher since it was literally written by a Polish guy and based on Eastern European folklore. Of course The Witcher's world is going to be predominantly white when the dude who wrote it was born and lives in a society full of white people. That doesn't make him racist or wrong for writing something like Yennefer to be a beautiful white woman. That's just a writer using the world around him as influence to make the story that he's writing. But I do find it interesting that Holland and showrunner Histrich didn't like the idea of a beautiful white woman playing Yennefer, and sought to change that for nothing other than diversity's sake. But as we've seen with Netflix's Witcher and many others, diversity for diversity's sake does nothing to improve a show. Especially when Yennefer is described in the books as a pale triangular face, violet eyes, and narrow slightly contorted lips appeared beneath the black tresses. Yet who they casted doesn't fit this, and then of course there's the sorceresses at large, which are all completely race swapped as well. I don't know how you read the name Triss Marigold and read her as a red-headed, basically Irish-Scottish looking woman and go, ah yes, this is that character. It's so blatantly obvious that these people are just taking famous works written by predominantly white European creators and then forcing them to fit their own worldview. And I'm not sorry when I say this, but when I look at Netflix's Yennefer, I just don't see Yennefer. I'm not saying the actress is ugly, she's a good looking lady, she just doesn't fit the character to me. Even less so when she's placed up against Henry Cavill's Geralt, it just feels completely miscast in my opinion. And clearly this push for diversity and evident hatred of white characters is doing nothing for Netflix, since Season 3 lost over 50% of its viewership from Season 2. Season 2 saw a boost of 142 million hours watched, and it increased in its second week with 168 million hours watched. Season 3 in its opening week only brought in 73 million hours watched, and then it dipped down to 66.5 million hours in the second week. For those of you who are bad at math like me, that means the first 2 weeks of Season 3 being available to watch, its combined total was 139 million hours, which is less than Season 2 in its first weekend, might I add. The views also declined from 15 million to about 13 million by Season 3's third week being available. It dropped to 32 million hours and 6.7 million views. It dropped off hard is what I'm trying to say, so in case all of these number mumbo jumbo sounds like nonsense to you, which I don't blame you, I hate math too, mostly because I'm stupid when it comes to it, but this isn't about me right now. And as the dust has settled on Rotten Tomatoes, the show has the worst audience score so far for the mainline series, which is not good obviously. And you could just simply type in Season 3 review on YouTube and you'll find a dozen essays all echoing the same opinion, which is that Season 3 is kind of ass. And to make matters worse, Season 4 is massively delayed. It was originally going to film this fall, but obviously due to the writer-actor strikes, it's all been delayed. So this means by the time you actually see Season 4 on Netflix, it'll likely be 2025 when it releases. Jesus, by then will people even care about this show anymore? I honestly doubt it. Apparently, Liam Hemsworth has already met with Netflix's producers and designers when it comes to his version of Geralt as well. This quote is a little complicated since it's a bunch of different people all chiming in, so I'll just label this as Netflix producers to simplify it. Jesus, I'm doing a lot of quotes today. Anyway, and I quote, "It's a very exciting season. Liam's been down to the studio, we've walked him through preliminary concept ideas for things, he's very excited. He's super enthusiastic, I think it's going to be a really great evolution for the show. I've met Liam briefly and he is 6'4" and another beautiful specimen for a costume designer to showcase, so I'm very lucky. It's very exciting as well because he's going to bring something special. The big thing I can share is that in Season 4 our world grows even more. So we begin to explore new parts of the continent that will be familiar to the fans but that we haven't yet seen in our series. We're exploring different location opportunities both in the UK and outside the UK for different parts of the stories. We do know what our season is at this point, we do have scripts, so we are all still advancing with what we're doing in terms of pre-concepting locations and concepts for sets, etc. End quote. Anyway, it looks like Netflix is refusing to admit their failure and they are fully committed to driving this IP into the earth before they apologize or admit defeat to fans. So, what do you think about all this? Are you even excited about Liam as Geralt? Do you even care anymore? Do I even care? Honestly, I'm more interested in just seeing how bad it's gonna get if I'm being real. I've already abandoned the show. At this point, I'm just a curious watcher from afar, seeing how long it takes before the whole thing blows up in Netflix's face. Anyway, as always, thank you for watching, let me know what you think in the comments, and like the video to help the channel out. This will likely be my last Witcher video for a little bit, unless something insane happens, but at this point I doubt it. Anyway, have a great day, eat your vegetables so you get big and strong, and I'll see you in the next one.